Hello there, folks. Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you stopping by. Check out this lava craw. So we're going to paint up some lures like this just so you guys can see how I did it. And yeah, it's my take on the lava pattern that Baker Builds did, and I'll link his video down below. Um, this is going to be painted on a lipless crankbait, and the first color is going to be opaque white. Now, this lipless crankbait is mounted on this holder upside down because I'm going to paint white on the bottom here first. I want to just soften the edge of that foil that's mounted to the side of the lure here. I really like the foil. It adds a lot of sparkle and shine to the lure. So I really appreciate those. I bought these on Amazon. I'll also link those down below. But all I'm doing here is, the bottom's already white. So I'm just softening the edge between where the foil wraps around the white and the bait. So we'll get a little bit of white painted on here, and then we'll move on to the next color. Typically, it's best to use a couple of coats of anything that you paint on. It's just a lot safer when you're using light coats. You don't tend to overdo anything. And between coats, you should always hit it with a hairdryer to get it to set a little bit before the next coat goes on. Once I've completed the white paint here, you can see the edge of the foil has been obscured, and you can see my next color is a limelight green. This is a wicked paint color. And I think that I chose this color because bass can see two colors really well, orange and green. And so I figured, well, if we're going to go with a super bright color, why not use both of those? So we're using orange, green, and red on this lure. So our next color here is the limelight green, and that's just going to go on the belly here. So you won't see any of that white. I'm going to cover all that white up with the limelight green here. Now, I find it interesting that everybody says that a craw pattern is the best thing that you can fish with in the spring, and no one really knows why, which leads me to wonder exactly why that is. Did some manufacturer say, hey, I got all this extra red paint, I need to get rid of it? And they started painting up lures red and telling people that they worked only in the spring? I don't know. I imagine that you could probably catch fish on a craw pattern throughout the year, but the fish that don't see a lure a lot during the winter months are probably keen to hit just about anything in the spring. So that's why they tend to have better luck with the red lure in the spring. That's my guess. All right, I'm remounting this lure onto a double post here just because it holds the lure a lot more secure, and I'm not doing anything else on the belly. So this is the easiest way to hold that lure. And our next color is going to be orange. This is a translucent color, and I believe that this is a Createx color. Now I'm spraying this at an angle, mostly to cover up the remnants of any little bit of white that's on the belly portion, and then also just to cover the flanks of the lure here. So this orange will also mix with the red as I go into painting the red on there, and the red will go on the top and fade down into the belly. So the belly will still have a bit of orange on it, and the top will be almost exclusively red. Now bear in mind that this is a translucent paint, and so the reflection of that foil will come through in the final product. And as I'm painting it, when it's in its dry matte form here, it's really hard to see the foil reflectivity through the paint, but all that'll come back when I put the clear coat on, and I'll show you examples of that near the end of the video here, so stick around for that. All right, so the next color here is a translucent color. It's called Bright Red. This is also a Createx paint. And again, here I'm starting from the top and I'm painting down onto the lure, and that will allow the red paint to bleed into the orange, and we'll get a little bit of that fading look. So it'll sort of fade into orange as it gets closer to the green. And you can see I painted it on pretty thick here because I really want that bright red craw look. And if you want the more of that foil to shine through, you can use a reducer in your paint, and that will help it be more translucent. Okay, next here we're going to paint the other side of the lure, basically the exact same procedure, and get a nice red coat on top. Now, as I get this painted up, before I go on to the next step is going to be painting black, and it requires stenciling going over it. And whenever you put stencil over a lure, you should make sure it's really dry because soft acrylic paint is really soft, and so you'll want to dry it out substantially before you try to do that. And particularly in foils, because if it scratches at all, the foil just shines. And you can see it in some of the lures here that I get a little bit of that foil shining through because of some minor scratches on the surface. So make sure you hit this really hard with a hairdryer before you go on to doing the stencil overlays. So here I am just hammering it with a hairdryer. All right, here I am wrapping it with this textured ribbon, and this is what gives it that sort of lava texture. And this is a really common material. Everybody's looking for it. I had a hard time finding it. I can't remember exactly where I found it. I think it was at Michael's, but it was the only roll they had. And when I've been back subsequently, they didn't have it anymore. So kind of hard to come by. And I also saw it on eBay for a little while, but it got all bought out there real quick too. So if you can find it, it's a really cool pattern to have. And I'm just using clips here to hold it in place. And you want that stencil material to be as flush with the surface of the lure as you can possibly get it so that the paint doesn't crawl underneath it. And I did have a little bit of spots here that it did do that, and I wasn't particularly thrilled with it. But you know, when you do 4 or 5 lures, some of them aren't going to be as perfect as you would like. And as you saw right there, this is just plain opaque black. And if you've watched my channel and my other lure painting, I almost never use black. But this is just a stylized type of pattern. We're not actually trying to match a crayfish or I mean, I've heard people say that crayfish, when they first come out of their hole, they're this red color, but I've never seen anything that looks anything like this in the water ever. So it's not a realistic pattern, so that's why I'm using black here, even though I don't normally do that. All right, now I'm going to use another stencil on top of this lava stencil. Right now, I'm just sort of spraying some on the back, some black on the back, and then I'm going to use another stencil. Now I'm going to use a little tape here to help hold this next stencil in place. I would rather have 3 hands, but I don't have 3 hands, so I end up having to use tape to hold it in place. And even with that, I'm still holding the stencil down with my fingers, and end up getting black paint all over my fingers too. But hey, it's worth it to get get the look that you want on these lures. So that's all I'm doing here is just taping it in place. And it's once you get it in place like this, it's easier to have it held in the consistent one spot, particularly since I'm going to do a couple of coats on this. So it's nice to have it taped in that consistent spot. And again, doing a couple of light coats instead of one really heavy coat tends to work better when you're stenciling. So you can see here I'm sort of misting this on a little bit, and checking it as I'm going here just to make sure that the ink or the paint's not pooling up there. And then of course hit it with a little hair dryer between coats, and then I'll go on to the next coat. After I have that second coat on there, I'm just going to peel off this stencil and dry the stencil off already. This is dried off. And then I'm going to turn it over, use the exact same stencil on the other side. The only real tricky part here is that when you're taping it up on the other side is that you need to make sure that the lines are lining up. So not only on the back you want them to line up, but you want it to angle properly so that the lines will line up on the bottom as well. And so I spent a bit of time here fussing over this, trying to make sure that they do in fact line up. And I'm a little bit frustrated here because it won't wrap around the lure as well as I'd like, and I'm going to end up having to use my fingers. So not only will I have a black thumb, but I'm going to have black fingers after this is all done too. All right, on the back side here, we're going to do, again, 2 coats on the lure, and of course 2 coats on my fingers as well. And once we get that 2 coats on there, then we'll peel both stencils off, and we're going to take a look and see what we got. When I took that stencil off, I just noticed that there was a couple of areas that looked like they could use a little bit more paint. And so before I took the lava stencil off, I'm just doing a little bit of touch up here and there, adding a little bit of extra darkness to some areas that I thought really needed it. That's all just personal preference. You get a feel for this stuff as you work with it and decide what it is that you want to see on your lure. So that's all, personal preference. Now I'm finally satisfied. I'm going to start taking the lava stencil off here. Again, be real careful with these clips. You don't want to be hitting that soft paint when you're working with it. So you want to be gentle when you're working with those clips. And there were a couple spots on these on the stripes that I thought filled in a little bit more than I would have liked. And here I'm just adding a little bit of darkness to the nose and the eye socket. That's just a common thing that a lot of lure makers do, and I tend to think it looks more snazzy that way as well. So yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that. All right, now next step that we're going to take is putting the eyeballs on, and like most people, I super glue my eyes on even though there is adhesive on the back of the eyes, and I'm running low on eyes here. My choices, my selections are pretty minimal. I'm sort of stuck with a very small selection. On this lure here, I ended up going with a dark pupil and a red iris, and I ran out of those eyes, and I found some other ones that had actually a red pupil and a chartreuse iris, and those look pretty good too. So you'll see some of that in the snapshots, both at the beginning and at the end here. You'll see those. You'll also notice that on the two lures that are on the left there, they both have dark lines around the gill plates, and I did that with a Sharpie and then painted over them with a red. And I kind of like that. I'm not sure which I like better. You'll see it also in the thumbnail and some of the other shots I have here towards the end. I'd be really curious to know how you guys feel about that. Do you like that the darker lines around the gill plates, or do you like it without the darker lines? And which eyes do you like? So let me know in the comments. Next up here, I'm going to be putting the clear coat on. You can see that I clear coat everything with a brush. I've seen people say that they would never do a lure without spraying on the clear coat, but with the UV clear coat, it doesn't dry at all. So when you paint it on, all the brush strokes will level out. You just have to give it a couple minutes, and then you put it in the UV light, and it hardens up within minutes. So I don't see any point in spraying it on. I always just use a brush. So I don't really make a habit of showing you guys the UV tank and how I cure the UV resin here, but it's simple. I just pop it in the UV tank here and turn the light on, and within an hour it's good. I don't use any spinners or anything like that because the UV resin starts to set up pretty quickly. It's pretty simple to take care of. All right, this is what the lures look like before and after, and I think you can see with the clear coat, you get a lot more of the foil transmitting through the clear coat once that's on, and it just makes them a lot brighter and a lot more dynamic. So don't worry about what it looks like before you clear coat it, because it does look better after you clear coat it. All right. Well, if you got something out of this, please like and subscribe and all that gobbledygook. Appreciate you guys stopping by, and thanks for watching.